Your money story, well, it might just be what prevents more wealth and abundance. Think about all these well-intentioned preachers and teachers and family and friends. Well, between that and school, the way that most people view cash or treat their money, well, it ends up costing them a fortune. And it's actually at odds with prosperity. So the wrong ideas or faulty frameworks, like how we design automation with our money, how we invest our money, how we manage it, those are the frameworks that we have. If we have bad philosophies that create dependency, that create risk, those end up limiting or maybe even worse, robbing you of your wealth. And part of it comes down to our beliefs. The words we actually speak determine our bank account. Yeah, like the conversations we have, the cash flow. See, when I say framework, my framework's always about accumulating and setting money aside and scrimping so that one day, someday, 30 years from today or age 65, whichever's greater, I could finally enjoy life. That framework will govern my actions, will govern what I do. And if that's not necessarily the best use of money, more importantly, if that limits your mindset or your ability to create value or your willingness to invest in yourself or your ability to enjoy your life along the way or enjoy the process, and life just becomes about doing things that you hate so that one day, someday you could finally retire, that's a bad philosophy. So your money is growing or shrinking based upon the story you tell yourself, or let others convince you of some story as well. So yeah, your balance sheet, which balance sheet is just your assets and your liabilities, and your bank account, they tell the truth, at least for the moment. They're a snapshot in time. So money is just a byproduct, right? If we're looking at an equation, it's on the right side of the equation, equals money. What is it that equals money? It's our mental capital, which is our ideas and knowledge and wisdom. It's our insights and strategies. Then when we multiply that by our relationship capital, mentors, family, friends, organizations, like it's mental capital times relationship capital that creates money. So that's why money is a byproduct. It's a receipt. It's a receipt of the goods and the services. So money as a byproduct is a result of what you believe you are worth and what you're committed to now in the future. Some people are just committed to the story of why everything went wrong and why they don't have more and why they have to do the things that they hate and why these things aren't possible. And they're so committed to it, they speak that into existence. And then other people just have been taught limited frameworks like budgeting. Oh, budgeting, you got to scrimp and save and sacrifice and delay and defer. Like budgeting is a great idea if you're spending way more money than you make. Like budgeting's great. And I'm not advising anyone to be reckless with money, but budgeting won't help people to speak wealth into existence. It typically will only hurt. It slows down the process. It often prevents you from healing your relationship with money. And it can create a scarcity mindset. What do you have to cut out? What do you have to reduce? What do you have to eliminate? What do you have to stop doing? And so much energy of our life goes into what to eliminate instead of what to create. Wealth is a game of production, not reduction. I want you to be intelligent and mindful with your cash. Like mindful cash management means paying yourself first, having some liquidity, automatically saving, deliberately investing in yourself so you could grow yourself and your ability and your skill set, and then learn how to become a better investor. But at odds with all this is this game of accumulating more, saving more, that gets us to think again in reduction. It adds fuel to the fire of scarcity. It focuses on savings and reduction instead of growth and production. Now look, we've all been told at some time to win the game of wealth, it's about the long haul. Like, when does the long haul end? The long haul doesn't sound fun. Like, the only people for the long haul are truckers. That's one, long haul you don't want to make. It's always like just going and going. When does it finally end? Like taking risk, like the long haul truckers or the ice truckers are like, damn, that's a scary thing. Like when you're just handing your money over, hoping for the best, taking risk, and then you're told it takes money to make money. When people tell you it takes money to make money, that's what people say that want your money. It doesn't really take the bank's money to make money. They utilize and leverage your money. Your deposits, they rent your money for pennies on the dollar, and then they sell it for dimes and quarters on the dollar. So they're all in the game of cash flow, not cash accumulation. So when people want to create cash flow, they often say, oh, well, it takes money to make money, and then convince you to hand them your money. But they typically know how to profit from day one. They know how to cash flow. It's different what they're doing than what they tell you. It's not just different. Let me be candid. It's opposite. Like accumulation is the opposite of cash flow. Accumulation is work to make money, trade time for money, make money as a one-time thing without recurring revenue or cash flow, and then try to set that aside so that 30 years from today, compound interest finally kicks in and saves you and you can live off the interest. But what happens on that 30 years of life? What type of energy does that take? Does that leave you in a place where you feel inspired and excited? Or do you do things just because of the benefits of it or because of the one-day promise that life will be better? That's how we get trained to sacrifice. Sacrifice today for a better tomorrow, but if we never have a good today, what good is tomorrow? I mean, it's like my dad, I remember, he once said, yeah, if you work harder than everybody else so you live a better life in the future, what about all the memories you miss out on? So this like faulty ideas, bad ideas, like hard work with the wrong philosophy still leads to bankruptcy. So it doesn't really take money to make money. It takes relationships and ideas. It's about learning to be more resourceful and inspiring other people to do the same. But if people don't value themselves, if they're too busy talking with excuses of why they're not where they want to be, they actually repel wealth. They actually speak poverty into existence. I know it sounds like a harsh truth, but if we're more committed to excuses than creation, if we're more stuck in the past instead of what we could do today in the next step that we take, if we're more stuck in blame and frustration and exhaustion and, drudgery and all the things that we've kind of been told is the way to get wealthy, like wealthiest people, it wasn't because they put in more hours necessarily. It's because they had different ideas. They had different frameworks. They thought about scale and leverage of how do I impact more people? How do I solve bigger problems? How do I add more value? But you got to value yourself first. That's the key. If we think that money will dictate or determine our value and we put our value in our net worth, then there's always someone with more. Even if you have billions of dollars, Brian Callen was talking about how he had a friend that was worth $3 billion and felt poor because he had other friends that were worth hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, it's all perspective. There was this study that was done at Trinity University where they would show, they would go to someone that got a job and say, hey, this is what you're getting paid. And that's 20% more than anyone else. And they felt really happy. But then later on, they would come back and say, you know what? You're getting paid that, but now someone else has been hired that's making 15% more than that doing the same job. And now they were unhappy. It was all this game of comparison, that it was more about what were they doing versus the people that they know or that they've heard of. And it was always like, oh, I should have more, I should do better. And we get caught up in these external factors that we can't control instead of what are the things that we can do today? Purpose, enjoyment. What are the things that help us feel valuable and to create value and to develop ourselves and to overcome the limitations? So if you want your money to work, then you got to let go of these stories that it's about one day, someday, that it's about hard work and discipline alone, and if you just wait long enough and if you're willing to take enough risk, this is all bad ideas, bad philosophy. Risk means chance of losing, so if you increase your chance of losing, how does that help you win? It takes money to make money is a defeating statement where people think, well, I don't have as much money or I don't have enough money, so how am I going to make money because I just have to pay the bills? We're in it for the long haul. Gets us to stop thinking about responsibility and just think, if I could just wait long enough, even if it's a faulty framework, even if it's not working, hopefully one day it will pay off. And what we find out is 95% of the time, it doesn't. 95% of the time when people are age 65 in America, they're not financially independent. They don't have enough recurring revenue from assets to cover their basic expenses because they've been trained to neglect cash flow. They've been trained to get a degree in some cases or just get a job in other cases with that degree and make more money. And in making more money, just try to save 10%, chase a 10% return in the market, wait for 30 years, and then unfortunately be disappointed because every year it doesn't perform how it's supposed to. Maybe because of drops in the market or economic issues, or maybe fees that they weren't really calculating, because there's a big difference between earning 9% and 10% when we're talking about compounded interest. We're talking off $100,000 It might be $300,000 difference 25 years later just by getting 1% difference because of that compounded, impact of only getting 9 versus 10. So in these situations where we're taught time value of money is the most important thing, start early. Well, what happens if you're starting later? See, we're just kind of taught to rely on other people, on Wall Street, on, retirement plans. It's easier because if it doesn't work out, everybody's in the same boat, and it wasn't really our fault. But the data's in, the stats are in. Just going through by saving, sacrificing, delaying, deferring, investing early and always, set it and forget it, has not worked. It is a failed financial experiment. And I feel like the spell financial institutions cast is that you have to rely on them. Save more, invest more, work more, take more risk, wait longer. You've heard it, yada, 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 right? But this often makes the fear grow. This is where the worry ensues and exposes you to unnecessary risk when we don't feel like we have any understanding of where our money is or how it might work or how we might get to it or what the downside protection is. That creates worry. From a family filled with worriers, especially the Italian side. I don't know how my grandma lived to 103. She worried every day. She popped Valium, but somehow she made it to 103 years old with the most stress that a human being. Like, we had to call her if we drove 5 minutes away to let her know that we arrived at the other place because she was always worried. And people have worry about their money often because they put it outside of their control, outside of their knowledge, outside of their investor DNA. They haven't been taught to mitigate and manage risk to protect the downside. They haven't figured out, what investments do they want to learn about? Do they want to grow in? Do they want to create cash flow with? You don't have to know everything there is to know out there. You just have to know where you're going to focus. See, if wealth were just a matter of discipline or picking the right product, why aren't people wealthier? If it's solely a game of patience, then why are 95% of Americans not financially independent at age 65? That's where it comes down to the framework. Your beliefs and the methodology that you leverage and utilize, this either frees people up or holds them captive, keeps people stuck, or again, creates more freedom. And you know what? When people just set it and forget it and they wait for the long haul, it actually fosters scarcity, because if you're not in control of your money and don't understand what your money's doing, like Jerry Seinfeld had a great line once. He said, "I sent my money out to work for me and found out it was pretty lazy. I'll do the working here." He's like, what they, sometimes we're kind of lazy with investing our money because we think, man, how do we have the time? How do we have the expertise? There's so much to know out there. And so we just hand it off and hope for the best. But then when it doesn't work out, we're left with bitterness, frustration, guilt, and shame. And you are your greatest asset, not some stock or bond or not even some piece of real estate. So how do you treat yourself as an asset? Everything from taking care of yourself with the food that you eat, the way that you move every day, the sleep that you get, the amount of water that you drink, the nutrition that you add, the way that you manage and handle stress, the mentors and coaches that you bring into your life to help you perform at top capacity, the intelligence that you decide to foster and increase. Intelligence doesn't just come from school. It's by far outside of school, and it's kind of a lifetime commitment, is investing in yourself, growing your value, recognizing your value. And part of that's just healing from our false beliefs that hold us back, set us back, make us it's like what I think about. I've had some very limiting beliefs in my life that were just kind of blind spots and hidden from me. After I lost my first dog, I was just like, I'm never going to love another dog again. And that just prevented me from actually, having love with these puppies are so fun. I have a puppy right now. It wasn't until I recognized that I made some deal with myself as a kid, and then all of a sudden I have that scarcity of, I'm going to lose this thing, so I'm not going to love. And then I've already lost the game from the beginning. And then some people just have those beliefs when it comes to money. Something that someone they cared about said, something that they felt because something didn't go their way, or they start to feel like it's like a game of luck, or it's a game only that a few people know and understand, and it's too complicated. There's all these stories. These stories are what repel wealth. So let's give an example here. If I say the word expense, How does that make you feel? Expense. For the first third of my life, I thought the road to wealth was to reduce expenses. Like expenses were the villain, the thing that was bad. But no one shrinks their way to wealth. I mean, in my very first business, the amount of money I saved versus spent, I just thought it was like, okay, if I was washing and detailing cars from 15, 16, 17 years old, and I just tried to sock away as much money in a savings account, which, by the way, was losing to inflation, but I just like seeing those numbers on a piece of paper, even though I'd never spend any of it, just held on to every single dollar, thought of how to reduce expenses in every single way. So it consumed my life. I have a friend, Dale, and he was an engineer. And when we started working together, he said that his wife one day was like, is there anything you think about other than money? Because he just thought about reducing, cutting back, saving. He was the king of budgeting with his engineer mind. And then he came to one of my events. And by the way, the only reason he came to the event is because his dad got him a ticket. His dad was a client, and his dad said there'd be free food. And Dale's like, cool. He's like a miser like me. So he's like, yeah, I'll go for free food. But we gave him a different framework. The framework was, what if you're financially independent? What if financial independence came from production and cash flow more than accumulation? So not waiting for decades to finally live the life that you want, but like starting creating cash flow so you have some freedom along the way. And, for Christmas, he went to the Goodwill and spent $5 on his 5 kids. Like, he just didn't want to ever part with his money, and he thought the road to wealth was be an engineer, save as much as he possibly could in his 401k, and just never spend money. But that 401k wasn't creating cash flow. It was merely accumulating. He didn't control what was going on in the stock market. And so what happened was it just consumed his mind that if the market went down, he felt bad, even though he didn't have control over that. But it's all that he was taught at the point. It was all that he knew. But once he was like, well, wait, I need to create cash flow, he decided, and this guy's pretty intense. What he did was he was just going to live off some food storage. He's a Utah boy, so a lot of these Utahns, including myself, we have food storage. And so lived off his food storage, worked an extra 20 hours per week on real estate, and in 362 days replaced his income. And then that's when his income completely transformed, because he started to focus more on service and solving problems. He became more of a mindful manager and created this process with me called cash flow optimization. Cash flow optimization was around, how do we plug financial leaks? How do we restructure loans? How do we, reallocate funds so that people improve their cash flow by paying off a loan that's high interest rate versus something they're earning that's low interest rate? How do we restructure the loan so that there's a more efficient way to get the loan, or make it tax deductible, or lower the interest rate because there's, the right credit score and collateral and cash flow reporting? And how do we save them on tax? And so Dale and I have saved, hundreds of millions of dollars for people just in plugging financial leaks in this cash flow optimization. So rather than him budgeting and just coming up with a finite number, even if he saved 50% of his income, that would take him forever to finally become financially independent. He started to buy real estate, create cash flow, but then had a 10x jump, because now every active dollar he could make, which he wrote cash flow optimization with me, he was like, hey, I want to come work with you. And then he became one of our coaches. And, within a few years, he was making 6 figures right away, but he eventually made a 7-figure income and created some recurring revenue and started selling insurance over time, created his own insurance company. Like, he started to travel for the first time. He started buying real gifts for his kids. His wife said he wasn't just obsessed with saving money all the time, so he became a recovering miser just like I was. But that was a mindset. He had to get rid of a model of accumulation and move to a model of economic independence. He had to forget about this concept of retirement 20, 30 years down the road and start focusing on what he could do today to create that cash flow. But he had to speak a new conversation. He had to have a different conversation that wasn't about being miserly, but was about being of service. It was about cash flow instead of cash accumulation. Then it was about service and solving problems for others and not just himself. It was about cash flow optimization, not just for his own plan, but for hundreds of families. And he started making 10 times what he did before as an aerospace engineer designing airplane engines. Taking that same philosophy, but bringing it to the world. He had to crack that value equation, which is mental capital times relationship capital equals financial capital. I was part of the relationship capital. He brought the mental capital, and we started to serve a lot more people. We solved a lot bigger problems. We added a lot more value. And then he took trips to Europe, which he had never been to Europe before, because it wasn't just about saving. It unlocked him. He started having conversations about how to help people become financially independent instead of what he could stop spending on at the store to put a few more measly pennies in his family's bank account. It was a complete transformation. Look, part of how we discover some of these things sometimes comes through pain. Like my first business I mentioned, Garrett Gunderson's Car Care. I mean, I was a saver, but everything transformed when I blew out my knee. In between my junior and senior year, I was playing basketball, blew out my knee, had to have surgery. And at that point, I had to hire employees because I had a clientele. But I actually made money while I just used my mind and sat on the chair with a knee brace recovering. That had me think that money wasn't this linear equation of effort equals money. It was value equals money. But you have to value yourself. So let me ask a few questions. Do you value your time? Because if you hear the word expense and only think of like something to eliminate, usually that confiscates our time where we spend more of our time trying to save money instead of leverage someone else's skills so that we could utilize our own and produce more value. You got to start asking yourself, if you're only worried about expenses, what's your time worth? Is saving money actually costing you profitability, production? Are you trying to do too much alone? I get it. It feels safe sometimes. It feels like, well, at least you know you can count on that. But at the same time, you can also count on being exhausted and hitting a ceiling of productivity and having too much that's going on your own and wanting to retire because it's exhausting if you don't have the right support. So let me break this down even further. Like, your income is actually someone else's expense and vice versa. Your expense is someone else's income. So what happens in most of finance is we ruin the flow of money. There's a thing called velocity of money. It's just how we kind of measure how much a dollar travels around in the economy in a given year. So if we just take the GDP, the gross domestic product of the country divided by the money supply, it tells us the velocity. How many times does that dollar travel or circulate? Because when I spend it, it's not the end of it. Someone else gets to take and spend it, and they get to take and spend it. The more times a dollar exchanges through goods, services, experiences, the more output, the more value is created. And yet what we're taught is to destroy velocity in personal finance. Reduce expenses, cut back, eliminate, budget, get the cheapest thing. So it's kind of like when you hear about profit or loss, the P&L, profit and loss. It should be profit or loss. They call it P&L, profit and loss. It's a terrible name to measure cash flow because sometimes people think reducing expenses is the best way to build wealth. But I'm looking at your output divided by your input is your personal velocity. How do we get there? Budgeting is one way, but that's always through draining your energy, taking a whole bunch of time on missing out on things and maybe not even investing in yourself and not growing your ability and not enjoying life along the way. Or there's two other ways. Plug financial leaks. The 4 I's to efficiency in plugging financial leaks are the IRS. Most people tip the government. Interest. A lot of people don't restructure their loans properly, renegotiate the best interest rates, or even reallocate funds that are, again, underperforming that could pay off higher interest rate loans. Or third, investments. Maybe there's hidden fees or commissions or just non-performing fees that create drag or not protecting the downside. And the 4th I is insurance. A lot of people don't insure the catastrophic. They insure things that are inconsequential, requiring them to pay a lot more money to the insurance company without a lot of benefit. So you could plug financial leaks and keep more of what you make, or you could expand your means. You could become more productive. That might mean temporarily taking money out of a bank account, seeing the numbers go down, putting it in yourself so you have more skill sets with financial intelligence or marketing or sales or communication or writing or speaking or whatever it is that helps you to exponentially increase your value so you could serve more people, solve bigger problems. And when you add that value, money will chase and follow that value. But if all the value that you're thinking is, I got to reduce expenses and hold on to what I got, that is a scarcity mindset that is the greatest destroyer of wealth. So we're really trying to create flow of money. The flow of money is, I'm utilizing someone else's skills by paying them so I can do the things that I do very best. And we want cash flow, more income. We'll actually even have more expense over time because you're tapping in to those expenses so you don't try to do everything by yourself. Hire the right employees, have the right people that support you to build processes and technological procedures or whatever it might be so that you become the most productive doing the things that you love to do the most. It's cash flow. That's what the profit and loss. Now, instead of thinking of money that leaves as lost, think of it as utilization, utilizing someone's skills, buying back your time, being able to enjoy your money. Like, instead of thinking of expense as negative, think of it as the only way that we could utilize our cash. Without expenses, money just doesn't have a whole lot of value or use. It's just potential. It's just storage. What's interesting about money, it's kind of like my iPhone here. So if my iPhone isn't plugged in, even if I'm not using it, the battery starts to decrease. Same thing happens to our cash. It just loses value over time when it's stagnant. So create the flow. It's the give and get. Give value and get value. A lot of people are just kind of like struggle to ask for the value that they want. Lately, I've been reaching out because we have these promotions where we're just doing a financial intelligence and literacy project to get Killing Sacred Cows, the audiobook, in as many hands as possible. So I'm going to a lot of people that are clients of mine or that I've spoke on stage with and saying, let's do something where you give this to your tribe, you give this to your database. And every now and again, I'm uncomfortable reaching out to them just because I have to go like, why am I uncomfortable? Because they might say no? Because I feel like I'm asking for something I haven't given enough in the past? Like, so I always remind myself, this is about service and how can I serve them and add value to them and ask questions. And it's okay for me to ask for something as well. But we've been taught to try to do too much on our own, to be rugged individualists, and like you can't rely on people. And if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. These are all scarcity mindsets that destroy collaboration, which is the key to prosperity. So give and get. Doing everything on your own will limit your output, will drain your energy, will destroy quality of life, and ultimately cost you your wealth. Because if it's all about always working and grinding instead of utilizing and leveraging, the reality is life starts to become something you want to retire from. There's only so much you can do in a given day. There's only so much time you have. What if you design the life you love? What if you looked at your calendar and said, what no longer represents you? What things do you do that you resent? What drains your energy? I was just reading a book today. It's on this process, the B3 process, which is like how to tap into, your brain and your body working together to generate ideas, to figure out what you know, but you're not accessing. And it was just like, what things are you doing that give you energy, drain your energy, or neutral in different agreements that you have? And I just like doing those assessments. I like to look at that on a regular basis and see where I'm in flow or out of flow. I like to look at my calendar and say, does this represent the person I want to be, the things that I want to do, the value I want to create? Because a lot of times we can get stuck in ruts of, save, scrimp, defer, make more money so we could save more money. Oh, a surprise happened. Now we got to put more money into the retirement plan. And then when that retirement plan will eventually get to enjoy life. Like, this is why so many people are disengaged in their work and not enjoying their life. And it's hard to be present. And they might be short with their spouse or their kids and live in guilt and shame, is because we're in a faulty framework, a faulty belief system. And then we speak it into existence with these memes and cliches. I mean, think of all the memes and cliches with money, or this money rap. It's like money. Money walks, money talks. Money is power, but money is the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees, but it takes money to make money. Money isn't everything, but time is money. Like, you think of all these juxtapositions, they become really confusing, right? And so people get confused about money, thinking that their net worth is their self-worth, that their net worth is their value, that their value is social capital and clout, that their value is external factors like money in a bank account or balance sheet. Now, those things let us know how effective we are being at being stewards of our value, which includes we have to understand how to manage the money, but we also have to understand how to make the money and then keep the money. But most importantly, it's about growing yourself, changing the game and the conversation to be one of prosperity instead of one of poverty. Not looking at expense as the enemy, but as an ally that lets you tap into other people's ability. I could never create this mic. I could never create the video that this is, or, like someone else created those, but I can utilize those to share what I am really good at in this game of money. So your profit and loss is give and get. It measures exchange, efficiency, and value. So think about those things that you buy that you could never recreate yourself. See, because anything world-class is a game of soul purpose, S-O-U-L, soul purpose. It's your values, abilities, and passions for the highest context of living. It's who you are when you're at your best. And it's a game of collaboration, utilizing your soul purpose and being congruent with it and leveraging other people's sole purpose because they're bringing service and they can solve problems. They can do things that you can't do, that if you try to do on your own, you get exhausted, you get worn out, you procrastinate, you're not competent at it, or you're completely incompetent at it. Yet someone told you that's how you save money, is because if we look at expenses as the enemy, then we actually diminish our ability to utilize other people's ability. Doing things that you aren't great at just to save money will cost you wealth, is an easier way to say it. It's kind of like simpler and harder all at the same time, right? Like at first, it's just simple to do things on your own. Like right there in the moment, just get it done. But eventually it becomes harder because it piles up. There's an insatiable number of things that a business can create to have to get done, like a never-ending task list. But there's a cap to your time and production. If you do too much yourself, as you get older, it starts to impact your health. It might impact your marriage. It might impact your self-confidence. I mean, you can definitely save money, but sometimes we save money at the expense of value and production. I want to be really clear about that. I could do certain things that other people could do for me. Like right now, I have a house manager, $35 an hour. I can make more than $35 an hour doing what I'm doing right here. So she actually costs money in one way, but saves it in another. Now, if I don't hire her, that's 3 hours a day of me doing certain cooking and taking care of certain things in the house and managing certain things, 3 hours. But she's got 5 hours that she comes and she removes that, and then she starts thinking about things like, I woke up in the middle of the night last night, she had put a glass of water by the bed. That was really nice. I didn't have, I was able to go right back to sleep after taking a drink. Like, she's just thoughtful that way. She's making sure that all the things are changed with the air filters. She checked them. They were clean. She took my Traeger grill in because it wasn't working right. Like, there's just like, so it ends up being a lot more than 3 hours when you start to calculate it, because that's just like cooking and managing. It's like, what about the ease and the peace of mind so I can be more productive? So yes, I'm investing that money with her, but I'm able to make more. If I save it by not paying her, I don't have the ability to be as productive because I'm going to have less time to write, less time to produce a video like this, less time to think, and less time just to relax and rejuvenate or work out or do the, cold plunge. I do the cold plunge. So anyway, like, think about, don't save money at the expense of value and production. If you reduce expenses at all costs, it actually reduces humanity. Because your expense is someone else's income. Also, if you do it and it destroys your energy and your quality of life, it reduces your humanity. Do you want something cheap or do you want something valuable? I guess it comes down to the same question. What is your time worth? What does saving money cost you? At our worst point financially, after being worth $8 million and then just giving it back, I was such a douche because I did this interview for a magazine. They put me on the cover with my Bentley on the Salt Flats and my Escalade, and I had these boots, and someone said I looked like a douche, and I think they were right. I was like, and I said something in there. It was like late 2007. I'm like, I've just made so much money. Now it's time to give back, and I did give it back because I was over leveraged in real estate, and my net worth just dropped in 1 year in 2008. Just dropped. And, here I was being careless about thinking it was too easy and getting over leveraged and getting out of the things that were part of my investor DNA. And, there was also just, there's some expenses that aren't worth it. Like, I got a Bentley because my partners were like, I think it'll help us get clients. If our clients were 14-year-old boys, we would have crushed it, but that's not who our clientele is. Took it to my hometown of Price, and they're like, what's wrong with your Chrysler 300? There's something off with the grill. And another time I went to, have it parked at a hotel, and they didn't put it up front, and I was like, what's wrong with them? And my wife's like, what's wrong with you? Like, look, just because something's expensive doesn't mean it's valuable either. Like, for some, Bentleys are great. For me, I'm not a car guy. I love my Raptor truck more than any other vehicle I've ever driven. It's got 80,000 miles on it. Still looks brand new. I love it. Like, you've got to ask whether it's worth it. But if my entire life was about how do I find the cheapest thing, I take so much time looking for the cheapest thing that it costs me. But it also costs you to be reckless with money when there's an abundance of it, right? Because You got to ask, what's your time worth and what is saving money costing you? That's the question. So John Ruskin, prominent social thinker, and he was an art critic in the Victorian era, said something I thought was really brilliant. He said, it's unwise to pay too much, but it's worse to pay too little. When you pay too much, you lose a little money. That's all. When you pay too little, you sometimes lose everything. Because the thing you bought was incapable of doing the thing it was bought to do. See, like, this is when we were at our low point. I didn't make this point earlier. Is my wife tried to get some dental work for free for our kids from some fair that was going on that she saw on TV, and spent 8 hours to get turned away because there were too many people. And so, like, that required so much time to try to get something for free. And sometimes people do that. They waste a lot of time trying to get the free thing versus just valuing themselves enough and investing in the thing that actually taps them in. Like, I could watch videos sometimes, and sometimes I'll just pay the guy that creates the videos to have them coach me one-on-one because I value the time and I can ask personalized questions. So part of what Ruskin also said, he said, the common law of businesses, balance prohibits paying a little and getting a lot. It can't be done. If you deal with the lowest bidder, it is well to add something for the risk you run. And if you do that, you'll have enough to pay for something better. Value your time, value your money, but the key here is to value yourself. It's about transforming your relationship to expense. Knowing that if you put money in you, that's actually an investment, even though it'll show up on the profit and loss as an expense. It's an expense worth investing in you. Yeah, you might make some mistakes. There might be some things along the way. I've made mistakes with I've had 2 different mentors that I paid $8,000 a month to, and they both weren't that good. But then I've had another mentor that I spent even more than that, and he's been phenomenal. So it's not that you go perfectly. You learn from those mistakes, and I call those expensive tuitions. But it's important to know there's 4 types of expenses. The ones that you eliminate are the destructive ones. Vices that you can't handle, borrowing to consume, get rid of those. Lifestyle expenses are the richness of life. It might be good meals, or it might be nice clothes, or it might be amazing trips, or it might be whatever it is. It might be supporting your hobby, whether that's, fishing or shooting a bow or having a garden or doing art, whatever that is. Then the third type of expense is a protective expense, often neglected by people that aren't in the know, and it costs them because we're all in store for financial surprises. But protective expenses get you asset protection, so you own nothing yet control everything. That you have legacy planning, so you don't just create entitled heirs and that you don't overpay on taxes. It's insurances that transfer risk. It's liquidity. It's education. And then the fourth type of expense is the game changer. It's the productive expense. If you invest $1 in something like yourself and then you can produce more than $1 back because of that, when would you stop making that investment? If we call it an expense, then we get caught in the trap of expenses being a villain and then budgeting and reducing that expense, reducing our humanity and that of others, because then we don't enjoy life. And if we don't enjoy life, we have less energy. And when we have less energy, we produce less value. And this is the problem with accumulation. Accumulation mindset is a belief that wealth is how much money can we put away, how much risk can we take, and how long are we willing to wait. Cut back, eliminate expenses, do this yourself, don't value your time. That is a shit model that doesn't lead to prosperity. Yet it's the model that people have adopted. That's the faulty framework that tons of people believe in. That's hard work with bad philosophy still equals bankruptcy, still equals exhaustion, still equals a life that you don't love, still drains your energy, still creates marital stress, still, clouds the future, still has people wishing for a different past. That's the problem with that model. It's a game that doesn't require skill. It's a game that doesn't require intelligence. It's a game that requires patience and discipline that may not work. You might be patient and disciplined to find out it was a model that put you at risk and neglected cash flow. And ultimately, when you finally get there, you've been so indoctrinated in scarcity, you don't want to spend money because you still view expenses as a villain. Expenses are how we tap into others' abilities. It's how we create some aspects of quality of life. This might be one of my favorite quotes. Coco Chanel said, "The best things in life are free. The second best things are very expensive." I wrote down what my 5 best days on this planet were. And one of the 5 days were, we were at the cabin. It was just my wife and my kids. And we just got up that morning, made some coffee. I'm like an amateur barista. Took a class in Intelligentsia, so I feel like I'm pretty good at this. But like my wife has no ability for it because she just knows like I'm a nerd about it. We just sat there and we sat around this round table talking. Then we decided to take a walk along the river, and that was amazing. The only thing that really cost money is we have this Can-Am, and we took the kids for a ride, and my wife, we went and saw some bison. So we went and saw some bison, went to the store and just bought like some sparkling waters and flavored drinks, and went up in the mountains and took it just a short hike, and then we came back, took a nap after lunch, and then we had a fire that night. Just kicked up. I put on some cowboy boots my buddy Brad gave me, and a cowboy hat because my wife thinks, yeah, I know I'm like not a cowboy. I get it. Like I could build some shelves. I can ride a horse if there's a guide there, but my wife thinks it's cool. And my buddy from Texas gave this to me, and we just sat around the fire telling stories. Then we blew up this 17-foot inflatable screen, and we watched River Runs Through It outdoors at our cabin with the river behind it. It was just a magical day. And it's because I was present. It was because I was connected to my family. I was out in nature. A lot of it didn't really require money. That's the best things in life for free. Like, it's the moments with my wife and kids. It's the artistic expression and play. It's being present. It's telling a joke and laughing. But the second best are very expensive. Having the cabin, that's kind of expensive, especially on the water, or having, there's things that money can't buy, and that's part of wealth, being present, joy, purpose. And there's things money can buy, like trips and clothes and food and shelter and beautiful hotels and whatever that might be. But I love that thought, like, you earn certain things, and then you other things, the way you earn it is by being there, by being present. So really, we're talking about flow. Give and take, give and get. It's like you add value, you allow people to add value for you. You give and you receive. That's flow. But cash flow is letting your money continue to give money off, whether that's businesses you own that can create cash flow when you're not there, real estate that creates cash flow from the tenants, or whether that's creating intellectual property, because I've probably sold several books while I've been doing this, but I'm here doing this, not focused on selling books. Like cash flow. How do you create cash flow? When you're in flow, things are great. When you budget, money gets blocked. Velocity slows. Focus on efficiency rather than expenses. See, accumulation is about savings, or velocity and acceleration is what we're talking about here with cash flow. How do you create recurring revenue? I've made mistakes in this. Like, I sold 90,000 insurance leads over 5 or 6 years. Really good at getting them with my book, What Would the Rockefellers Do? And I've got these insurance agents that have 7-figure renewals. I have $0 renewals. I just got paid one time for selling the lead. So it's like, I should probably get my wife licensed. I don't want to really talk insurance, but like, I've got great people in that world that, when we're sending leads, they could put my wife on application. And I've got several people that I do that with. Or I created a program called Multiplier, $250 to $500 a month that the people are in it. And so that's recurring revenue. I'm still active, teaching every week in it, but it's recurring revenue. It's cash flow. When insurance gets sold, there's cash flow. There's renewals that happen on that. Launching a $100 a month program, it's cash flow. So I also send referrals out and get percentages for family office firms, for really wealthy clients. Some people create this cash flow with real estate, others buy businesses. But too often people lock their money in retirement plans. They lock it away and they don't create cash flow. I think I live in Utah. And so from my house, we can see the Salt Lake. The Salt Lake, I think, has one living organism in it. That's it. Otherwise, it's just a dead lake. It's just tons of salt. It's really buoyant, and it stinks sometimes. Nobody goes there. There's no houses built around it. It's just death because it's stagnant. There is no flow. But if we look at the Amazon River puts miles of fresh water into the ocean. There's life all around it, so much that people are a little nervous of all the crazy life that's all around the Amazon River in the jungle. That is cash flow. You keep the money going. I think of it this way. Mother Teresa didn't have a lot of money, but she had access to it at any time because she had purpose to eradicate poverty. If she walked into anyone's office and said, you know what, give me some money, I've got this thing, they would do it because she knew her purpose, and that money flowed through that purpose and grew that purpose because of how she inspired with her vision. There's other people like the millionaire next door people that have a lot of money, but you'd never know it. They're not utilizing it. They're not benefiting from it. Their kids are probably going to blow it when they die because it's just stagnant. It's just sitting there. I had family that had cash in coffee cans, or, people that just put money in a savings account and do nothing with it ever for their whole life. That is stagnant, like the Great Salt Lake, which is dead and smelly, versus the Amazon River. That is cash flow, where it just keeps coming and keeps going. If you're only concerned about net worth, well, it's easy to get tricked into accumulation. Yeah, tricked by people that want to create cash flow on your money. When you give the bank money, they're not putting it in a retirement plan. They're lending it out to other people to create cash flow from day one. And if they give you $1 to rent your money, they're selling that same dollar for $3 or $4. And by the way, they do it 5 or 6 times through fractionalized banking. They're in the game of cash flow. They'll even incentivize you to increase the cash flow to them by charging lower interest rates on shorter term loans, because they're in the game of cash flow, right? So you can follow the accumulation model and be the broke millionaire, the millionaire next door, the miserable millionaire with a lot of money but nothing else, viewing expenses as your enemy. Like, I get it, because when I wrote Killing Sacred Cows, and I mentioned earlier, I had this net worth that was like, in 2007 was $8 million. I had this accountant that had done it for something I was doing. And then that was pretty much gone in 2008, the next year. And I was like, reminded me of everything I've been writing in Killing Sacred Cows. Net worth it's relatively worthless if you can't convert it to cash or to cash flow. I remember back then, I was such scarcity before I wrote that book, being the miser that I was. I had these partners that were going to Hawaii. They lived in their dream home. I was living in an apartment at the time. When they went to Hawaii, I judged them and they were hiring photographers to go on the beach. I'm like, you guys are spending so much money. Now, these guys died at 35 years old. I'm so glad that they lived their life to the fullest, because they didn't have a lot of time here. It helped me watching them break free from scarcity. That their quality of life led to them having better conversations, speaking more wealth into existence, feeling more possibility, meeting more interesting people, rather than hunkering down and just waiting at their home, hoping things are going to go well. I mean, my wife once said, if someone has money but doesn't live where they want to, do what they want, or have what they want, what good was the money? I really agree with that. So if you want economic independence, focus on cash flow. Focus on the flow of your money, that flow coming into you and investing in yourself, and then investing in other people that allow you to serve and solve problems and add more value. Focus on the relationship between income and expenses and look at it as a give and receive. This isn't about retirement. It's about freedom. It's about independence. It's about real interdependence. That's co-creation and collaboration, bringing other people in. When you invest in yourself, you grow your value. Tap into productive expenses. Increase your productive expenses. Decrease your destructive expenses. But discover how to become a better investor, a better value creator. How can you make more money by adding more value? Some people that say cash is king, it's not. Cash flow is more king than cash is. Cash is potential. It's just stored energy. It's losing charge, like I said with my phone, day by day due to inflation. Even if you're not using the cash, it's still losing value. That's inflation. And by the way, the real reason why most people reduce flow is because of their faulty money beliefs. They don't understand exchange creates wealth. They think that reduction creates wealth, savings creates wealth. No one shrinks away to wealth. It's unequal exchange. It's win-win. If you buy something from someone, you're saying what you bought was worth more than you paid. If they're selling it to you, they're saying it's worth less than what they got from you. You both end up winning. There's tons of win-win out there. Your expertise is easier for you from someone else that doesn't have it, so you can provide value for them and they can pay you. It's a more efficient exchange. But if you hoard and you become a miser, that's going to reduce exchange. It will misdirect our efforts to a finite game of budgeting and just our finances versus what Dale did with bringing value to other people. It requires spending on yourself instead of, reducing your energy. It requires investing in yourself. It improves your quality of life versus just reducing it in the name of a higher net worth. So part of this really begins when we examine our feelings about money. When you look at your feelings about expenses, where do those come from? How does it make you feel in your gut? What would it take to transform that relationship? Part of it is we have to identify and resolve myths and dilemmas. Dilemmas are when we think you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Like some people are like, oh, they've just taken more than their fair share. They have too big of a home. How much is too big of a home? 1 square foot more? 1 square foot less, it's not too big. Who determines it's too big? It's just a contradiction. It's a dilemma. It's not true. Like, it's all perspective, and value is perspective. What you value, someone else might not value. What you're great at, someone else might not be great at. That's the divinity of diversity. If we all could do the same thing and help in the same way, then there's no reason to exchange with one another. There's not as much lesson we could learn from each other. That's what I think the beauty of this world is. But when we have fear around money, when we worry about money, it removes our ability to get into flow. And when we have money stop with us, when it gets to us, versus help it build us and grow us, and then keep that flow going, we actually slow the entire process down. So myths are these dilemmas that people believe in they're not true. They're the elusive obvious, though. Once we see them, it's like, once you know, you know. It's funny because I think of like a bank account is a lot like an elk hunt. Like, almost doesn't count. Like, it's kind of like the winner of the race and the loser of the race sometimes is, very, very incremental difference. But like when I've shot a lot of elk with bows, and, you either get them or you don't. Almost doesn't count. So with money, it's not effort that counts. It's not good intentions that count. Yeah, there is some luck in it. There is preparation, there's skill, there's patience. Like when I'm, but in an elk hunt, there's luck that comes with it. Weather, wind, which location you go to that day. The same thing can happen with money, the right relationship. You're in the right place. You've prepared, and that's part of the thing that's tough is practice sometimes doesn't pay off for a while. And when it comes to money, we don't practice enough. We don't learn enough. We don't grow enough. We don't practice what we're saying and how we could be more valuable, and taking that time to consider. It's just like people get caught in the grind of just going to work and then talking about in a negative way everything that's going on and viewing expenses as negative and then budgeting. It is an exhausting, terrible place to be. So what you say and what you don't say matters. Your conversations build or destroy wealth. They attract or they repel. And scarcity will be something that repels and detracts. And sometimes those beliefs are inherited. My family coming from Italy and Ireland and even Norway. I mean, in Ireland, there was the great, famine. In Italy, my great-grandfather wasn't able to put food on the table. Other times it comes from circumstantial things that people get scarcity. Circumstantial could be like something happens to you and when I was a kid, thinking I was stupid, so trying to prove that I wasn't. It was an initial ambition, but it was eventually limited. Judgment of yourself and others, comparison. Are others better off? Have more? You want their life, want what they have, want more of what, whatever it is. Like, these belief systems, inherited, circumstantial, or coming from judgment, which is usually from misinformation when we romanticize other people's life being perfect. These things create scarcity. Lack of purpose creates scarcity. Lack of forgiveness creates scarcity. Lack of gratitude creates scarcity. Young beliefs that happen through circumstance because someone said something happened to you, the way that you felt, those unprocessed emotions, those circumstantial things can create these limiting beliefs that end up in our language, end up in our conversation. So we end up creating a money story. And the money story is really 3 layers deep. The first one's the protective layer, and it's the layer that everybody knows about. It's what we say, right? But it's only part of the story. Only partially true. What you want other people to think or to know, but not what you don't want them to know, because the second layer is the secretive one. It's the one that we only say to ourselves and we don't speak out loud because we judge ourselves and we hold on to that and we feel bad and we feel wrong and we feel guilty and we feel shameful and we feel behind and we feel jealous and we feel all these feelings because we hold on to it. And in the night or when there's stress, those stories come up and they sabotage our success and they sabotage our authenticity and vulnerability and our connection to others because we're detracted, we're derailed, we're not present. Now, if you start to speak those out loud to peers, to mentors, and you let go of them and stop using that as a crutch or as a viewpoint that's not helpful anymore, you can get to the unknown of the subconscious beliefs. These are the things that govern your actions and determine your energy, but you can't see or understand because they're beneath the second layer of this story that never allows you to feel the feelings. Never allows you to get to the bottom of what's going on, what that real sludge is, what you can't share because you're too stuck in what you won't share. And what you will share is often lies. I watch this happen all the time when I'm talking to someone and we're talking about possibility and this new creation or me mentoring, and then all of a sudden those excuses come like, ooh, if I part with that money, what about the one time when that didn't work out? And what if I can't make this work? What would that say about me? And they start saying things like, well, I don't have the time. I don't know that I have the time now. Let's talk later. Later's a no. Later's an excuse. As my wife, when I'm like, want to hook up? She's like, later. That's a polite way to say no. It's a no. That's definitely a no. They say, I don't have the money. A lot of people have the money. It's just sitting in a savings. It's sitting in a retirement plan. It's sitting in a cash value somewhere, but they're scared to touch that because they're measuring their net worth and they don't want to increase their expense, even though it's an investment, because it would lower that account, even that would grow their value. So there's all these stories that hold people back. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. Later. Who am I? I'm not good enough. There's all these things that we don't really say it out loud, but we feel it. But you want to heal your relationship to money. Say the things out loud to someone you trust that you've only been saying to yourself. What do I need to forgive? What would it take to accept that? What's the real truth versus what story I'm telling? If you get there, you get to the unconscious. Now, how do you get to the unknown and subconscious? I have to admit, I haven't read as much on the topic because I just work directly with therapists and health practitioners and really gifted healers. And I just kind of move quickly. Well, my wife is more the researcher. She reads, she researches. And so a lot of the books I'm going to recommend, they're from practitioners that help me. Maybe my wife read the book, but I'll just talk like of the modalities that really help me to get to the unconscious, subconscious beliefs. I think these might be really helpful for you to discover your own path of healing. Like I remember one day I was hiking in Arizona with my buddy Joe Polish, and my neck was really stiff, and went out, and he's like, man, it's just psychosomatic, and he referred me to the Great Pain Deception book. And then, he's like, I know Steven, I'll just hook you up with him. So I did a Zoom with Steven. He goes, next time that happens, just don't go get it treated. Don't go get, dry needling and therapy and chiropractic. Just realize it's an emotion and just keep going about your day. And I haven't had my neck go out in years and years and years. Right? So that was really cool. I was able to do that. Now, my wife, when it comes to like kids, she likes the book, What Happened to You? Conversations in Trauma. That's by Bruce D. Perry, who's an MD and a PhD, and Oprah Winfrey's part of that. We use that methodology as parents to let our kids like talk through stuff. One of my therapists, Annie King, recommends The Body Keeps a Score. I did a full day session with her and went from no movement in my shoulder to full movement on my shoulder because I had some unconscious emotion and belief stored there that was blocking me from processing something mentally. And it was like I just started to see all these beliefs and these worries and these things that were holding me back from enjoying life, being wealthier, being more successful, being willing to be more open and share with people. So that's a book that's kind of in there. Let's see. How to Change Your Mind. That's Michael Pollan. I read some of it, and then someone borrowed it, took it from my cabin. So, but I've gone through some of the things he talks about in there, Hop A and psilocybin, and I've done MDMA therapy. Some people do some of those things recreationally, but you do them in a very therapeutic way, and man, that's super helpful. Biology of Belief, Bruce Lipton, PhD. That's super helpful. A book that might be harder to find, Love and Loving by Jim Gordon, one of my main mentors, led me to meditation and the path of sound and light. When the Body Says No, Gabor Mate. I mean, so there's a lot of things you could do. MDMA therapy. You could find an article by Tucker Max called What MDMA Therapy Did for Me. It's on Medium. That's really good. There's great websites out there. Like EMDR is a process that really helped my son. We were in Disneyland when he was a kid, and we were at the swim pool, and someone bumped into him, hit his head on the concrete, cracked it open. When we took him to get some stitches, he didn't want to let the doctors do it. They put him in a straitjacket and put on masks, and he was afraid of anyone in masks. So EMDR helped him to overcome that. I know a lot of my friends have used EMDR, had really good results. My wife and sons have all done that. I did Landmark for him when I was a kid. That was super helpful. If you want to just watch a cool documentary on stuff like this, Fantastic Fungi is really useful. But today we're talking about what you say, but we're also talking about where does what you say come from? Your money story, your things that you don't speak out loud but hold you captive. how you view expenses and money, what modalities and frameworks and methodology you use to get where you want to go. And if those aren't really the most effective, then it could be hard work, but not get where you want to go. So I'm helping you question some of these things, redefine your relationship to money, heal that relationship to money, understand what your thoughts are and what your words are and how that's impacting your wealth and impacting your bank account. So I'm so glad that you are watching, that you're listening, however you're taking this. And my message to you is build a life that you love. Do the work. Get clear about what you want. Find where those blocks are, remove them, and really gain the prosperity that you truly deserve.